Before we understood what intelligence was, something in the ocean had already rewritten it. Picture a creature with no bones, no armor, no claws, nothing to protect it. Now place it in an ocean filled with sharks, dolphins, and barracudas, and ask it to survive. Not for a year, not for a century, for 500 million years. Through ice ages, through asteroid impacts, through 5 mass extinction events that erased most life on Earth. It was here before the dinosaurs. It watched them rise, and it watched them disappear. And it kept going. Not by becoming stronger, not by becoming faster, but by becoming something stranger than either. This is the octopus, and what scientists have discovered about how it thinks may force us to rethink what intelligence even is. Start with the problem. The ocean is not a stable place to be soft. 140 million years ago, the ancestors of the modern octopus lost their protective shells. What remained was essentially a muscular bag of organs with no hard parts except a small internal beak. No exoskeleton, no speed advantage, no venom powerful enough to deter a serious predator. What the octopus had instead was a nervous system that evolution, under enormous pressure, began to expand and rewire into something the animal kingdom had never produced before. But first, it needed to survive long enough for that to matter. The solution it arrived at is built into 3 layers of its skin. The outermost layer contains chromatophores, pigment-filled sacs surrounded by tiny muscles. When those muscles contract, the sac expands and color floods outward. When they relax, the color disappears. Each chromatophore is wired directly to the nervous system, which is why the response time is measured not in seconds, but in fractions of one. Below that sit iridophores, structures that do not contain pigment. Instead, they stack reflective protein plates in precise arrangements that bend light into metallic blues and greens. Below those are leucophores. They scatter and return ambient light as white. The combination of all 3 layers controlled simultaneously allows the octopus to reproduce not just color, but luminosity, texture of color, sheen, matte, reflection, the full visual experience of being a rock, a piece of coral, a patch of sand, and it can do this in 1/5 of a second. A chameleon, by comparison, changes color through hormonal signals that travel through the bloodstream, a process that takes 20 seconds or more. The octopus routes everything through its nervous system. The transformation is nearly instantaneous. One researcher sat and watched a single octopus for 1 hour. In that time, it changed its appearance 177 times. That is a complete new disguise every 20 seconds. But color is only part of the picture. Using structures called papillae, tiny muscular projections embedded throughout the skin, the octopus can physically reshape its surface. Smooth skin becomes coral. Flat skin becomes jagged rock. A soft body takes on the texture of a barnacle-encrusted surface. It does not just match what it sees, it becomes a 3-dimensional replica of it. And here is where this becomes genuinely strange. The octopus is colorblind. It has no ability to distinguish wavelengths of light in the conventional sense. It cannot see the colors it so precisely replicates. For years, this was one of the most stubborn mysteries in marine biology. How does an animal that cannot perceive color produce such accurate color matching? In 2015, researchers found the answer, and it was not what anyone expected. The same light-sensitive proteins found in the octopus's eyes are also present throughout its skin. Not connected to the eyes, distributed across the body itself. When a piece of octopus skin is surgically removed and placed under a light source, it continues to respond. The chromatophores activate. The color shifts, the skin sees. The octopus does not observe its environment and then decide how to match it. It absorbs the environment directly through its entire body surface and responds automatically, instantly, without deliberation. It does not look at the world, it becomes it. Most of what we understand about intelligence assumes a center, one brain, one point where information converges, where decisions are made, where the self in some meaningful sense lives. This architecture is so fundamental to vertebrate biology that we rarely think to question it. Of course, the brain is where thinking happens. What else would thinking even mean? The octopus has 500 million neurons. That places it above dogs, above cats, far above nearly every other invertebrate on the planet. A snail, for comparison, has around 20,000. But here's the number that unsettled the neuroscientists. Only 1/3 of those 500 million neurons are in the brain. The other 2/3 are distributed across the 8 arms. Each arm contains its own dense neural cluster, its own local processing network, capable of receiving sensory input, integrating that information, producing behavioral output without any signal from the central brain. This has been confirmed in a way that is difficult to ignore. When a researcher severs an octopus arm and places it in a dish, the arm does not go still. It recoils from painful stimuli. It reaches toward food. It attempts with no brain attached, no central command, no self to bring that food towards she where a mouth used to be. It is acting, deciding, pursuing a goal without a brain. This is not reflex. A reflex is a single closed loop. What the severed arm demonstrates is multi-step, goal-directed behavior. Detect food, orient toward it, reach, grasp, transport. Each step depends on the output of the previous one. That is cognition, running on hardware that was never connected to a central processor. The central brain is the conductor. The arms are the orchestra. But each musician, it turns out, can play an entire symphony alone. When an octopus hunts in a complex reef environment, it can simultaneously probe multiple crevices with different arms, processing what each arm is tasting and feeling independently, while the central brain monitors the overall situation. The suckers on each arm can taste and smell whatever they touch. An arm, exploring a dark crevice, does not relay information to the brain and wait for instructions. It detects, evaluates, acts, all locally, all in parallel. The octopus does not think and then move. It moves and thinks simultaneously, in 8 places at once. For decades, neuroscience treated centralization as a prerequisite for complex cognition. The octopus has demonstrated experimentally, reproducibly, that this assumption was wrong. Intelligence does not require a center of gravity. It can be distributed, parallel, spread across a body that thinks with its skin. Here is something that does not fit what you just heard. The octopus has no long-term memory in the way mammals do. Most individuals live for 1 to 2 years. Everything it learns fast, and then it dies. So how does an animal with essentially no time, no teachers, no social group become one of the most cognitively sophisticated creatures on the planet? Keep that question in mind. Off the coast of Indonesia lives a species that uses this architecture in a way that no other animal on Earth has been documented doing. The mimic octopus. Most camouflage is passive. An animal matches its background and stays still. The goal is invisibility, to remove yourself from the predator's perceptual field entirely. The mimic octopus does not disappear. It performs. Researchers have documented it impersonating more than 15 distinct species, each requiring a different body posture, a different movement pattern, a different visual signature. It flattens its body and undulates across the seafloor like a flatfish. It coils its arms and moves in a sinuous wave like a sea snake. It spreads its limbs in a radial pattern and drifts like a lionfish. These are not rough approximations. They are precise reproductions of specific animals' body language, movement dynamics, coloration, maintained over extended periods, in motion. But the behavior that changed the scientific conversation was not the impersonation itself. It was the selection. When a damselfish threatens the mimic octopus, the animal does not cycle through its repertoire randomly. It becomes a banded sea snake, specifically, consistently, because the banded sea snake is a natural predator of damselfish. The octopus has in some representational form a model of what the damselfish is afraid of. It has a library of possible impersonations, and it selects from that library based on the specific identity of the threat in front of it. That is not camouflage. Camouflage hides you. This identifies the predator, retrieves a representation of its natural enemy, deploys that representation as a deterrent. It is psychological manipulation, running on a brain the size of a walnut. In 2021, marine biologist Dr. Alexandra Schnell from Cambridge University was following a day octopus on the Great Barrier Reef. She had named her Scarlet. A large coral trout approached. In most predator-prey interactions, what happens next is simple. One animal flees, one animal chases. Neither happened. The trout changed its coloration from patterned to pale. A signal Scarlet appeared to recognize immediately. The fish was not hunting, it was communicating. Small crabs and fish were hiding in crevices that the trout's body was too large to reach, but an octopus arm is exactly the right size. The trout positioned its body like a pointer, orienting toward a specific crevice. Scarlet watched. Then she reached in. When she caught something, she ate. When she missed, the trout took the prey. This was not accidental. It was a coordinated hunt between two species that shared no evolutionary history. No common communication system, no reason by any prior understanding of animal behavior to cooperate. Dr. Schnell then did something that surprised even her. She started pointing toward crabs that Scarlet had missed. Scarlet responded. She understood what the gesture meant. She redirected her arm toward where the researcher was indicating and caught the prey. Dr. Schnell later described the moment as two beings separated by 550 million years of evolution having a conversation. This is called referential signaling, using gesture to indicate a specific object in the world. It is considered one of the foundational components of language. It had never been documented between an octopus and a human, until that day on the reef. Stop for a moment. Everything described so far, the distributed cognition, the mimics selection logic, the cross-species cooperation was done by animals with a lifespan shorter than most houseplants. The octopus gets 1 to 2 years, no childhood, no education, no accumulated cultural knowledge. Every one of these behaviors was figured out individually from scratch in under 24 months. What does that say about what intelligence actually requires? For most of the 20th century, the dominant theory of intelligence linked complex cognition to social complexity. The evidence was compelling. Primates, cetaceans, elephants, corvids. Every highly cognitive animal lived in groups. Researchers began treating sociality as nearly a precondition for intelligence. The octopus lives alone. It has no elders to learn from, no offspring to teach. The female dies before her eggs hatch, having spent her final weeks starving herself to guard them, her body deteriorating as her optic gland triggers a slow, irreversible shutdown. Every behavioral innovation died with the animal that invented it. The theory said the octopus should not be intelligent. Then researchers looked more carefully. Off the coast of Australia, they found a site where more than 100 octopuses from 5 different species were living in close proximity. Not fighting, not eating each other, but coexisting. Young males watched older males, adjusted their behavior accordingly, social learning, in animals that were not supposed to be capable of it. In deep water off Costa Rica, over 100 females of a previously unknown species had gathered near hydrothermal vents. They tolerated each other's presence for nearly 2 years, protecting their offspring together. The ultimate loner, it turns out, chooses community when the conditions are right. The theory needed adjusting again. 500 million years, 9 distributed minds in a single body, a skin that sees without eyes, arms that decide without brains, a creature that plans, manipulates, impersonates, cooperates across species and dreams, all in isolation, all without passing a single lesson to its children, all within a lifespan shorter than most of our calendars. The standard model of intelligence, centralized, social, inherited, does not account for the octopus. It evolved anyway. On a completely separate branch of the tree of life, something arrived at cognition through completely different mechanisms. A second origin of intelligence on a single planet, which means the question of what minds are possible here or anywhere else is far more open than we assumed. And here's the part that should stay with you. We nearly missed it entirely. For most of scientific history, the octopus was classified as a simple reflex machine, a curiosity, a seafood. We were not looking for intelligence there because we did not think it could exist there. How many other minds are we not looking for right now? The next time you look into the ocean or anywhere, remember, not everything that thinks looks like us. Some of it looks like a rock. And if that thought stays with you, the video on screen now goes further. The ocean is not running out of answers. It is waiting to see if we are finally ready.